Yes, yes, please.
Yes.
Or are we waiting for more people to join?
We can wait for 2 minutes.
Sure. So I understand one discussion on bonds has happened already.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So should we spend more time on bonds, or you guys are already clear about all those concepts?
Maybe touching upon will be helpful.
Yeah, we can just take a recap and then do it.
Certainly.
Last session, what Professor?
So, Vishesh, if you want to share anything, I'm already passed on to you.
I was just trying to do that. And Murli, I'll be needing your help. I am not very good with technology.
Yeah, it's no issue, no issue. Yeah, now your screen is visible. No issue.
Okay, great. So I hope everybody had a good day in office. Or people are still working from home? I think
Still working from home and still doing the office work.
Oh, Mohit,
Okay.
you're
This is a very common trend.
you have to go to office.
Yeah, this is a very common trend. I have heard that people who are working from home are in fact working more than what they used to work from office.
Yes.
Yes, yes, that's true.
Yeah,
You are
there
right.
is, there is no distraction when we are working from home. But in
Okay.
office-
Yeah, and moreover,
I have to go every day to the office. Yeah.
and moreover, the human tendency of people believing that if you're at home, you're not working, so they'll
Yeah.
probably try to block each and every time through external meetings.
Yes.
I know. And I think there are a lot of surprises also when the kids play around with the laptop and
Yeah.
make some surprise changes in your office work. So,
I know, seriously.
okay. So shall we start?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Hey,
So,
everyone.
hi. I was thinking that let's try and cover the most we can in next 1 hour. Basically, we'll be talking about bonds and equity. What are the key points? They are already listed here. We'll talk about what bonds are, what debentures are, face values, issued at price, maturity, what is interest rate, what are the impacts of compounding, what is YTM, why is YTM important, and how the variations happen, because sometimes the bonds are issued at par, sometimes they're issued at premium, how that happens. Second is equity. Equity, it's a huge topic. It's a huge topic. It needs at least 3-4 hours. But I think I'll try and quickly touch upon 3-4 main concepts. What is book value of shares? What is the comparable method of equity valuation? Dividend discount model and cost of equity. So guys, let me know if I'm going too fast. I usually have a habit.
Michelle, we will stop you when you're going fast.
Please do.
This privilege we don't have it on Sunday, but today we can have.
So you can stop me 100 times if you want.
Thank you.
So basically, first thing I would want to start with is that the whole concept of finance, everything about finance, is built on the base of accounting. Accounting is basically a set of concepts and principles or standards, basis which the books are written and the accounts are made. Where accounting ends, that is the point where finance starts. So to sum up, we can say that accounting is the data, and how we crunch that data, how we drive analytical conclusions out of that data to take informed management decisions, that is called finance. That is the most important concept first. So in accounting, there is a concept called entity concept. So entity means that the business is different from the promoter. So by and large, we have a habit of thinking that share capital means promoter's money, and business and promoter is one and the same. So it is not. Corporates are actually, by law, they are artificial entities or artificial individuals which are registered, whose job is to manage the funds received from different set of investors, whether they are equity investors or they are debt investors, then to invest those funds into assets, conduct the business, whichever industry they are operating in, earn revenues, pay interests, pay taxes, and eventually pay dividends and increase the value of the share or maximize the value of the share. So anytime you forget this, just think of a funny example that, let's say, Infosys and Mr. Narayan Murthy. If we say Mr. Narayan Murthy is sick, I hope he should not be. But if we say Mr. Murthy is sick, it doesn't mean Infosys is sick. If we say that Mr. Murthy is on a holiday, it doesn't mean the whole Infosys is on a holiday. It is only Mr. Murthy who's on a holiday. Mr. Murthy is different from Infosys. Infosys is a manager whose job is to manage the funds of Mr. Murthy, and also basis what Mr. Murthy has invested, Infosys has taken some loans, and how using this both pool of capital of debt and equity, they have to conduct their usual course of business. So the only two forms of finance available to any company, it's either debt or equity. There is no third source. Everything else what we hear, the jargons which we hear daily, they are just different jargons, and they are different shades or different hybrids of the two products. I hope you can all see the screen with the red bar in between.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say here is, just a moment. What I'm trying to say here is that the least risky instrument, so we call them instruments. These are all instruments of finance or instruments of capital. One instrument of capital is debt, another instrument of capital is equity. So the least risky instrument of finance is bonds. And the maximum risk is there in the equity share capital. Why we call it minimum risk and maximum risk is because of the probability or guarantee of getting these payments. When we issue a bond, these bonds are highly secured products. They are secured against the cash flows. They are secured against the base assets of the company. And hence there is almost 100%, while there is nothing called 100% because there are things like pandemics and wars. So these are almost 100% guarantee that you will get the committed amount which you have said. So as we travel the risk exposure from bonds on the extreme left to equity share on the extreme right, we see different products. Bonds, term loans, debentures. These are all in the form of debt instruments. As we move forward, debentures are of various kinds. They can be non-convertible debentures. They can be optionally convertible debentures. They can be compulsorily convertible debentures. So these three debentures are something which are called hybrid or mezzanine products. We have all heard the concept called mezzanine floor. Mezzanine floor is the middle floor between, let's say, ground floor and first floor. There is a mezzanine floor which is in between. So when we say a mezzanine product or a mezzanine instrument, it means it has the characteristics of both debt as well as equity. And as we move forward towards further risk exposure, then it's preference share capital and finally equity share capital. So as any investor is assuming more and more risk, he would ideally want to be compensated for taking that risk. So bonds, which have the minimum risk, they also qualify for the minimum return. Bonds are usually 5, 6, 7%. Equity, which has the maximum risk exposure, obviously qualifies for, and the investor would expect to be compensated for that as additional risk they have assumed. And hence equities are higher. Equities are usually between 15%, 20%, 25% and above. So with this base, we'll start moving towards bonds now. Am I clear so far, or is anything you would want me to repeat?
Yes.
Vishesh.
Yeah.
Just go back to that sheet, instruments.
Sure.
This minimum risk, the bonds which we have already discussed. This is the thing which the company is, asking, the issuing the bonds, right? That is one.
Okay.
And the term loan is what? That is also related with the which company is issuing that?
Term
or
loan,
company is borrowing the money?
This is borrowing. All of these are borrowing. All of these are borrowing.
So bond is also borrowing.
Bond is also borrowing. What usually bond is? Bond is actually a certificate issued by a company or a government to the bond holder, committing that you have invested X capital with me, and on that capital I'm going to give you X% interest rate over the life of the bond, and at the end at the maturity I will give you the maturity amount.
Right, and the debenture is also the letter of credit. Okay.
Debenture is also letter of credit.
Letter of credit. So that is also the borrowing. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
This is one more point. Sorry.
Both kind of bonds are there, secured and unsecured.
Bonds are by and large secured. That is exactly the difference between a bond and a debenture. That is the first topic on the next sheet.
Okay. So when a company is issuing a bond, suppose, then company has to submit kind of an asset papers to the bank or something somewhere, or
So whenever there is a bond issue, there is a whole document which is called the subscription document. In subscription document, the company or the government will give a complete detail of what the bond is, how it is going to be surfaced, what are the collaterals and the securities which are behind them. And basis those supportive documents, any debt product will always have a rating. So I was reading in the group that I think Gunjan has already spoken about ratings in past. Any debt product will always have ratings.
so this would be by SEBI then?
No, SEBI is the one which is which regulates the security markets. Yeah, that's a regulatory authority. Ratings are issued by private organizations like
Cyril,
you would
CIBIL.
say Cyril, ICRA, and Moody's.
Standard & Poor, Moody's.
Standard and Poor's. Yeah.
So,
So
Saurav here, I just wanted to ask,
yes, sir.
if the organization make profits, then they provide the dividend. However, in case if the organization has not made profits, then in that case, still they will be paying the bond values and other things, because as I could understand that bonds are something which is more of a surety of returns, while equity is something which is like you investing in shares. And
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes, Saurabh. Any debt product will always have a committed payment, and that is why it is called a less risky product.
Okay.
There are always fixed obligations with debt, and when we say debt, all these things qualify for a debt. Bond is also a debt, term loan is also a debt, debenture is also a debt. All of these are debts. They say, and the reason they accept a lower interest rate or a lower return on capital, because they say that irrespective of how well you do in the business or how bad you do in your business, I have given you an X amount and I would want to be serviced with that amount. Unless in case you're not able to service, I will forfeit or I'll invoke my pledge on the underlying security which you have provided.
Okay.
However, in equity, it is always the residual profits which go to the equity.
So if in a very layman term, since I'm not from finance, just would want to understand, it's basically kind of equity make you kind of a owner of it, and so therefore you enjoy the profits as well as the losses you bear. But
Absolutely.
in case of bonds, it's basically you are giving a loan and you are not a part of the organization.
Absolutely, yes. Bonds do not get any share or any control on the day-to-day operations of the business. They do not get any voting rights. They do not get any ownership stake on the business. So they are just lenders. They are that's why they are called the external capital.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Vishesh, I have one doubt.
Sure.
In real world scenario, how can we differentiate these minimum return expectation of debentures and compare with mezzanine products?
Actually, generally mezzanine products are not publicly traded. OCDs and compulsory convertible debentures, they are usually issued by corporations depending on the project, depending on the risk profile. They're very internal. There is not a secondary market for these two products. Secondly, whenever they are being offered, again, there are very detailed terms and conditions which will be supported during such subscriptions. To answer your question, you would not be able to compare both of them because they are not publicly traded. Bonds are publicly traded. Term loans are again very specific. Equity, on the contrary, is publicly traded, while OCDs and CCDs, which is optionally convertible debenture and compulsory convertible debenture, they are not publicly traded.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And if you want to benchmark their returns, they are always done on a comparable method.
It's a Vishesh.
Yeah.
Okay, in the equity share, there will be a maximum return or maximum risk.
Yeah.
There is a, if somebody wanted to buy the index, BSC index, MSC index will be there, no?
Yeah.
Yes,
that
please.
is also, somebody wanted to make a trade through that BSC index and NSC index also can invest. They are also like shares.
They are actually shares.
Okay.
And they are public shares.
They are public shares, more safe. No, generally Sensex will be increasing only for a period
No,
of 10
it's
years, 15 years.
no, Mohan, it's not like that. Shares are the highest risk profile products. It's not. There have been a lot of instances where the stock markets have crashed, as recent as March 2020, where the whole world market indices had crashed because of pandemic. And similarly, they crash every time when there is a major election, depending on which party is being expected to come to power. Even the US elections were having an impact on the Indian markets. The oil wars between Russia and Middle East countries, they were having impact on the global market. Anything goes wrong in China will have a lot of impact around the world. So stock markets are just a platform where the equity products are available only of those organizations which are public, which have chosen to go public. A private organization's shares are something which you cannot trade on the stock market because they are not even listed on the stock market. They can only be privately traded.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Shall we move to bonds?
Please.
So the first product which I want to touch upon on bonds and debenture is there are two key differences. While there can be many differences, two important differences to remember is bonds are highly secure products. They are secured by collaterals or some securities, like the assets of the company, like the project for which the bond is being raised, maybe some stake on the equity, just in case the bonds go wrong, they will be converted into equity. However, debentures are non-secured, largely non-secured. That is one key difference between bonds and debentures. Secondly, bonds are raised both by government and corporates, while debentures are largely issued by corporates. Governments, it's very, very less likely that government will issue debentures. Second point I want to discuss here is we'll move to some calculations. Along with the calculations, I think a lot of concepts will be clarified. I have made two spreadsheets, one on bond and one on equity. So I have tried to keep the numbers running from top to bottom so that whatever we start learning on the first cell goes till the end and we can sort of understand everything in a sequential flow. So there are three important terms when we talk about bond. One is the face value, which is the base value of a bond. Secondly, the issue price. And third is the maturity amount. In terms of interest, these two terms are interchangeably used. One is called interest rate, other is called coupon. And the fourth important term is tenure or maturity. So it's a 5-year bond, or it's a 10-year bond, or it's a 30-year bond. So these 4 terms are important for us to understand anything about bonds. So first of all, we are saying that what is the effect of compounding? First of all, we analyze the case of a simple interest. In a simple interest, I say that there is a bond with a face value of 100, issue price also of 100, with a coupon of or an interest of 6% and a tenure of 5 years. So if I am getting 6 rupees on 100, so in 5 years I will get 30 rupees. So in simple interest, what I earn at the end of the 5th year is 30 rupees of interest. What I get back as maturity amount is the initial capital principal amount which I had invested, which was 100. The final value is 130. And the effective simple interest rate is 6%. So it will get further clarified when I talk about the compounded annually. Basically, I'm not sure how many of you are using the word compounding in your daily business. What compounding means is actually it means rolling over. So if let's say you give me $100, I give you a promise that whatever you give me, I'll give you 10% return on that. So in first year you give me 100. At the end of the first year I return you $10. So you take those $10, you take that 100. You enjoy your $10. You shop for something. You again come back. You invest 100 again with me, and next year again I give you 10. But let's say a smart investor, let's say Murali says that I do not want to spend the money right now. So you have given me 100 plus 10 rupees of interest. I want to invest the whole 110. Next year, I'll have to give him a interest on 110, not on 100. So the interest which will be giving him will be 11. He reinvests that 11 with me. So next year, I'll be giving him an interest on 100 plus 10 plus 11. 121 becomes the new base, and I'll be giving a 10% interest on that. That is called compounding. What he's doing, he's rolling over all his returns from the product back into the same product. And hence, if he is doing the same thing, all other things held constant, bond with a face value of 100, issue price of 100, coupon of 6%, but compounded annually for a maturity of 5 years, for a tenure of 5 years, and a maturity amount of 100, the compounded return or the final value becomes 133. Instead of 130, it becomes 133. Maturity amount remains the same. The interest component has become 33.8 instead of 30 because he has compounded his interest payments. For first payment for 4 years, second payment for 3 years, subsequent payment for 2 years, and last payment for 1 year. How quickly can we compound? So first case was that the returns are being compounded annually. We can also compound the returns semi-annually. We can compound the returns quarterly. So let's see this problem statement. Let us say semi-annual. I'm on cell number C34 now. Issue price was 100. The annual interest was 6%. So semi-annual interest will become 3%. What I'm trying to also plot here are the timelines. So on January 2021, a bond was issued for $100, which has a 6% interest rate compounded semi-annually. So at the end of June, which is 6 months, the bond value is now 103 because 3 rupees interest is already due. For the next 6 months in the same year, the investor will gain interest not on the base 100 but on 103. So instead of 106, it becomes 106.1, so on and so forth. So there are 10 instead of 5, there are 10 different incidents where the interest will be paid and compounded. And hence, the final amount in this case becomes, on cell number N38, you can see 134. Going back to the base table, if it was a simple interest, the interest earned would have been 30. If it was compounded, but only once in a year, the interest would have been 33.8. And if it has been compounded semi-annually, I'm sorry, I think I made some linking error. So it would be 34 instead of 33.8. I revisit this calculation. In case of semi-annual compounding, the interest will be 34.4. So all of you are with me?
Vishesh, you have multiplied 5 into 2.
Yes.
You should divide 5 divided by 2. You have put that 5 into 2 in the calculation.
Okay. No, it will be 5 multiplied by 2. Acha, I got the problem. There was a manual entry. 100 into C7 divided by 2 into 5 multiplied by 2. Guys, I'm sorry. I would not want to waste time here. The point I want to quickly communicate is we can see the detailed calculations. In simple interest, what I was making was 130. In single compounding, what I was making is 133.82. And in semi-annual compounding, what I'm making is 134.39. So the faster you compound, the faster you roll over your returns, the better it is for the investor or the bond.
Yes, perfect.
Sure. So I would want to.
I have a small question. Sorry, I'm not from the financial background. And this bond face value and the issue, can it be this situation will be different in pricing? Like,
They are mostly, and I have created a problem definition on that. So we'll be discussing it here, where the bonds are issued at discount and matured at par, or where the bonds are issued at discount and matured at premium.
Okay.
So that's what the question you're asking, and that's the following concept. So another very important. Sorry, someone was asking something.
Vishesh, Mukund here.
Yeah, Mukund.
Can you make it at monthly rests compounding? Just
yeah, definitely.
So what would be the result? Because if you see our term loans, so basically they say daily rest or monthly rest. So how much difference it makes?
I will just calculate it here for you. 6% is the annual. So
right.
If I compound it every month, so it is basically getting compounded 12 times.
Right.
So the monthly interest becomes 0.5%.
Yes, 6% की जगह, Vishesh, if you just do 0.5%, that below table will automatically will give you that amount, right?
This one?
I think. No. Just for what I think Shraddha or someone asked right now.
No. Actually, that won't, because I have stretched the table only for 10 months. So in that case, it has to be done for 12. So basically, the formula is that the principal amount into 1 plus your interest rate, whatever, divided by the number of times it is being compounded.
Right. To the power of?
Raised to the power?
Raised to the power of n.
N, but in this case, we'll have to divide n
by
into 12.
Whatever number, yeah.
Because 60 times it will
frequency,
get compounded.
yes.
So it will become 134.89.
Okay. Where is
So in
the
semi-annual compounding, it was 134.39. In monthly compounding, it will become 134.89.
Okay.
Vishesh, Varun. So denominator will be based on the number of months. Here it is 12 months, so we have 12. If semi-annually, it will be 6 or 2 half.
So I'll just write it for you. It is principal. I wish I had a whiteboard. It would have been easier to write.
But still, it's fine. Please don't delete it, and you can resend this file so that we will.
I'll definitely share it, guys. This is Excel, and it is very difficult unless I open a PPT. Shall I open a PPT for you?
You can write it next to it so that we can correlate later on also that what was.
Yeah, so I'll just put the formula. I hope all of you can.
We can correlate
go
it
through Excels.
Right.
So let's say monthly.
Vishesh, there could be one more option.
Yeah.
And just copy this sheet, create a copy of it, and then working on it. That way, everything would remain.
I'll have to stretch this table if I were to do it. Then what I've done here for 10 times, it has to be done for 60 times. If I have to show the effect of compounding every time. So I'm just writing a quick formula here. I think when you'll revisit the cell function, you'll be able to understand. I'll link it with the base. Issue price multiplied by 1 plus the interest or the coupon which is committed divided by number of times it will be compounded, which means 5 into 12. It will be compounded 60 times. Raised to the power 5 years tenure into 12 times compounding. What's wrong with this?
So you need to divide 1 plus
instead
C7
of
by 12.
C8, you have to take C7.
7 by 12 actually.
It should be
1 plus
C7 by 12.
by 12.
C7
by 12.
C7 by 12.
Right.
By 12, yeah.
No, not here. Not here, not here.
Is equal to 100 into 1 plus 6 raised to the power.
Divide by 12. Then
This is there's something really wrong with the Excel. Actually, this Excel has a data table, and this Excel is doing iterations.
अभी हो गया.
So this is annual compounding. We want to make the annual to monthly, which means 5 into 12. Here, this is 5, and I want to guys, I'm seriously sorry. I don't know why it is happening. Yeah, this is the number. I'll just repeat it final time. Sorry guys for the confusion. Principal into 1 plus interest upon number of times it is being compounded in a year, because 6 is the annual interest rate. And if it is being compounded, it is being compounded 12 times in a year. Multiplied by 5 years life of the bond and into 12, which means 60 months. So this is the final number.
Great. I think this is very helpful.
Clarity.
So next is YTM.
So this compound interest which we are just learning here, who takes the decision? Either me, I need to take the decision, or the in fact this interest calculation
takes the decision.
Issuer
takes the decision.
Issuer takes the decision.
So they takes on the basis of their profitability basically.
Yes.
They don't want to get into this monthly compounding because the return is high for the customer. So in that way, if we know this subject, despite of that also, if we are starting, we are just trying to get the monthly one on the. Will they agree upon that?
So it actually somebody rightly said on the group that issuer is the one, because let's say tomorrow if you go to a bank and you want to take a FD, bank only has 2 products. They'll tell you that either I'll give you interest annually or I'll give you interest semi-annually. You can't go and structure a product with a bank. So bank is the one who is deciding here what kind of product they want to offer to their customers. Similarly, when a corporation or a corporate does that, depending on their profitabilities, their cash flows, their projections, they are the one who will come up with this idea that we want to offer a simple interest or we want to offer a compounded interest. So these are the decisions taken by the issuer.
Is there any incidence it is negotiable?
Vishesh, on the same question, in fact, this was also going in my mind, that if say a bank or any organization is offering me a choice to make it semi-annually, quarterly or annually, I think first of all, they will give me different interest or different percentage of offering for quarterly, half yearly or yearly, because
actually,
as we are...
Yes, definitely yes. So that is your final returns keep changing. It changes every time, because what I also calculated here is that for everything remaining the same, 100 rupees face value, 100 rupees issue price, 100 rupees maturity, 6% interest, and 5 years of tenure. Simple interest, the final simple interest was 6%. In terms of interest compounded annually, it was 6.8%. The next line is not visible right now because some linking error in that sheet. Why can't I correct it? Yeah, it's done. So in terms of semi-annual compounding, it becomes 6.9%. So this is exactly what happens in the bank also. So if you say that I have a 7% FD, bank will ask you that would you want to draw the interest at the maturity? Would you want to draw semi-annually, or you want me to credit your interest every month to your account? So if you take the choice of interest being credited to your account every month, then the interest rate will be lower. Obviously, because you are withdrawing your interest. If you let that money stay invested with the bank, bank will give you a higher return, because that money which you have not withdrawn and you have let it stay with the bank for the FD, bank will give you a rolling over return on that as well. You got it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Vishesh, I just want to give them clarity. Let's say this is Mukund here. See, if you issue in a debt mutual fund, okay, So there are two types of debt mutual funds, where when one is a basically they pay you the interest at regular intervals, and another is they basically don't pay. They will pay you at the maturity. Okay, so the compounding is basically whatever you earn the return, that's compounded, and interest is paid on the interest on interest. Basically, compounding is interest on interest. So they pay you, but if you choose a growth plan, then they will pay you everything compounded at the end. So the principal plus all the interest earned plus interest on interest earned, whatever. That's how there's a difference between this thing. But if they pay you at the regular intervals, they will not compound it. Uske upar wo, because they are paying you the return.
Right.
I'll give you a very, very extremely funny example, guys. Don't laugh at it. We used to crack this joke. Let's say you have a hen, and that hen gives you an egg every morning. So you have a choice either to consume the egg or wait for the egg to hatch. If the egg hatches, you'll have another hen, and the two hens you'll have two eggs. Then you can wait either to consume the egg or to wait. And if you wait, then you'll have 4 hens eventually. So this is compounding. Are you consuming the interest, or are you letting it stay invested? If you let it stay invested, eventually it will grow into a bigger amount.
Sure.
And see, as a lawyer, we see everything as a term of the issuance of the bond or a debenture. Okay, this monthly rest, compounding, all is basically a term of, is one of the term. Like 6% coupon is one of the term, right? So then whether that coupon has to be paid monthly rest, semi-annually, annually, or sometimes it's also daily. So so that is a basically term of the that bond.
So all the new word of digital lending and the microfinance, Mukund, you would know better. You must have been structuring such documents, as they are happening on daily basis. The interest is being charged or rolled over on daily basis. So this is like the lending to a shopkeeper, or lending to a small tailor, or lending to small women in cottage industries. So what they do is that if they have given you 100 rupees, they'll start collecting 102 rupees. 2% is the monthly interest, which translates into 24% per annum. And what they do is they give you 102 rupees today, and they'll tell you that, let's say they have given you 102 rupees today, and they'll say that you have to return principal plus interest back to me. So you have to return 3.4 rupees to me daily. So when they start giving this return back to them daily, and within that 3.4 is also invested into the next customer, what they are earning is 40% interest per month. The digital and the microfinance lending. Those are the kind of businesses which are being planned these days. So guys, I think we should rush because we would not be able to cover equity otherwise. Shall we?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So what is YTM? YTM is actually yield to maturity, which means that the total actual interest earned by a bondholder, all inclusive of all the variations which are possible. So if you remember Professor Ashish, he was saying that YTM is basically the IRR, and IRR is where NPV becomes 0. But why should the NPV become 0? What is the reason to make the NPV 0? Basically, IRR is that, or YTM is that particular interest rate which is all inclusive from a debt instrument or a bond instrument, which you know that if you discount all your cash flows by that particular interest rate, what you get is 0, which means that is the maximum price you would want to pay for a bond. You would not want to go beyond that amount. So let us understand YTM first, and then we'll pick up two problems where the bonds are issued at maturity and discount. how it eventually impacts the YTM and hence the valuation of the bond. So in this case, we are saying the bond face value is 100, but it is issued at a discount, which means while the face value is 100, the issue price is 90, 10% discount. Now the bond, the compounded price of the bond is, I have kept all the basic parameters same. It's again earning a 6% interest rate. It's a 100 rupees face value bond. In case of issue price, it is 90 instead of 100. It's still 5 years. So the compounded price of the bond at the end of first year is 106. At the end of second year is 112, 19, 126, 133. You'll remember it from the previous problem. 133.8 is the final value. 133.82 is the final value. In this case, the interest which you have earned is first year 6 rupees. You had invested 100, your bond value is 106. What you have earned is 6 rupees. Second year 6.4, then 6.7, 7.1, and in the final year 7.6. Maturity amount is 100. So if I draw it as a cash flow, initially I had a negative cash flow of 90 rupees, which is my acquisition cost of the bond. Acquisition cost, which was actually at a 10% discount on the face value. Then I get 6% interest per annum on the face value. Interest is always given on the face value. It's not on the issue price. That interest reinvested, compounded. And then finally on maturity, I get the total last year's interest plus the principal amount which I had invested, which is 100. So the all-inclusive return which I am making here is 9.28%.
But Vishesh, we had invested 90, no? We had not invested 100.
Mm-hmm. This is how the bonds are structured. A company wants to raise capital. Company is fine with paying a 9.28% cost for that capital. How the company which is raising the bond has planned the cash flows for the bond holder or the bond subscriber is that they will give 6% interest on the face value of the bond. They will redeem the face value of the bond, but to entice the customer, to attract the customers to come and subscribe for their bonds, they are also giving a 10% discount as on the issue price. Did you get it now?
Yeah, kind of.
So it's like a promotion tool they are doing.
So, I mean, again, I'm so sorry I'm asking it but Vishesh, then in that case, should my calculation should not be on 90? Because I am, as a customer who has availed this discount, should I not calculate my earnings on 90 rather than on 100? So this
that's what you have done. You have initial investment. These are your cash flows, just for clarification. Your cash flows, or let's say the investor's cash flows. Where is the border tool? These are your cash flows. You invested 90 in the first year. You got interest, compounded interest for 5 years, along with the 100 rupees maturity value. What you gain finally, all inclusive, is 9.28%.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
And why we have got 9.28%? Just because there was a discount on the issue price. If I make the discount 0, so we come back to 6.7%.
Completely understand.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Saurabh, this is to generate more money. Structure on discount, so that the people will be attracted towards you. You are getting a face value, but you pay only 90. So that 10%.
So let's say you are an individual investor and you can only park, let's say 1 lakh. I would want to give you a 5% discount on the issue price. Your IRR may become your YTM will become 7.96%. But let's say you are also a hedge fund based out of Singapore and you can invest 1 lakh crore into the same bond. I would certainly want to give you a higher discount. If I give you a 10% discount on the issue price, you end up making 9.28%.
I can now understand completely. Thank you so much for this.
Got it.
Vishesh, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I have a doubt that if the net return is 107.57, so had we purchased the bond at the face value, wouldn't the net interest be 7.57 itself, or you mentioned 6?
No, it will always remain the same because, as I said, the interests are always paid on the face value.
On the face value, yes.
I may choose to offer discount, although it does not happen. Just for the sake of understanding this concept, I am throwing this example. I may choose to offer different discounts to different set of investors.
Yes.
But I will always calculate the interest on the face value because that will remain same for everybody, because that is going to happen for the next 5 years. I can only give them a promotional discount at the time of joining my bond.
So my question is that had there been no discount, so our net return would have been 7.57%.
Had there been no discount, zero discount, it will be 6.71%.
But if you see the cash flow column, the last column comes up to 107.57.
So that is last year. No? In last year, what you have earned is 7.6% of interest, and 100 rupees has come back to you.
Right,
That
right.
is what it is.
Okay, all right.
This is your interest.
See, understood. Yeah, my fault. Thank you.
So we'll take another variation now. We are saying that a bond with a face value of 100, it is.
Just make it 10% over there, na, at C45. Yeah, thank
you. So second variation we are taking here is that there's a bond with a face value of 100. We are giving a promotional discount to attract investors, 10%. So the issue price becomes 90. I want to make it even more lucrative for the investors. So at the time of maturity, I want to give 10% premium to them. But while you had invested $100 with me, I will return 110 to you. So maturity amount becomes 110. So we again draw the cash flows. Bond compounded price remains the same as it was here, 106, 112, 119, because interest is always paid on the face value, which is 100. This is the interest amount. Now I draw my cash flows as an investor. What I paid to buy this bond was 90. What I kept getting every year was the interest. And in the last year, I also got my maturity amount back, which the bond holder was a very nice person, the bond provider. He returned 110 to me. So the IRR I'm making in this case, or the yield to maturity, which we are making in this case, is 10.99%. Are we all clear?
Yes, it's clear. Yes.
So Vishesh, this is Rohit. Sorry.
Yeah, Rohit.
I thought someone was asking a question, and I think I interrupted. Sorry. Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks. So Vishesh, my question is that, so I understood all these concepts, but if someone has to take a decision whether to invest in this bond or not, I thought what professor said was to look at the NPV, right? So do we calculate NPV here also?
Just going to calculate that as the next step.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Vishesh.
Yeah.
Just a clarification. Yield is basically total return at the end of maturity, right?
At the end of maturity. Yield basically means all inclusive.
All inclusive, right?
All inclusive. So in this case, if I were to judge this bond and somebody says that it's a 6% coupon bond, so I would want to know that, okay, 6% is fine, but what is the issue price? What is the maturity price? And if I include all that, what is the final return which I am making? So YTM is all inclusive, all the variations possible. What is the return which I am making in totality?
Right. But one more thing, see, the professor has not taught us that real yield actually, which also takes care of basically as a cost, the inflation cost as well as the tax cost.
It does.
Right?
It does. So
no, this 99 is exclusive of inflation and tax, right?
So inflation I have not covered here, because what happens usually, how this 6% is being defined here. So whosoever raises a bond, issues a bond, he takes care of that, because inflation is a market-wide thing. It is going to be same for you, for me, for Mukesh Ambani, respected Mr. Mukesh Ambani, even for respected Mr. Amit Shah. So it's a market-wide thing. So he will price his bond accordingly. He'll make sure that the investor would want to cover his taxation, inflation. Taxations are very specific thing. You can be a corporate holding my bond. You can be an individual holding my bond. You can be a male, a female. You can be a resident Indian investor. You can be an international investor. So the final calculations of taxation are specific to the investor, and they are also factored in. Then you will get a tax adjusted YTM. That will be called a tax adjusted YTM. We do not calculate tax adjustments because they can vary from person to person. Till this level, it is going to be, this cash flow is going to be same for everybody. If I start reducing the taxation from here, then it will become an individual specific. Let's say even in our salaries, somebody falls in 10% tax bracket, somebody falls in 20% tax bracket, somebody falls in 33% tax bracket, 30%. So till this level, it will be same for all of us. Beyond this level, depending on which tax bracket I fall into, that will be my tax adjusted YTM.
Okay. Okay.
Vishesh, hi, Anirban here.
Yeah.
One question: this whether a bond will be on a premium or on a discount, if the company decides based on the opportunities available by the company to raise funds through other sources. Because in this case, for example, my rate of return is around 10.99%. So does it mean that if I raise funds from other sources, it will be higher than 10.99%? So I raise through this process and I pay a less interest. That's the approach the company takes.
Certainly, yes. Because in real world, it does not happen. Nobody gives so much discount and so much premium. It will be 5, and it will also be 5.
Okay.
So the bond, the YTMs will range somewhere around this 8.82%.
Okay.
And that even if they are AAA rated.
Vishesh, this IRR or YTM or the return, it's a cumulative return, 5-year return, or how is it like?
It's a cumulative 5-year return after taking care of everything: the discount, the issue, the premium at maturity, and the rolling over of the interest over the period life of the bond.
Here you have make it to the present value and then you have calculated this return. How is it like?
No. So actually, the professor should have taken this up. IRR is a discount rate which inherently makes the NPV 0. So when I say 8.82%, let's say if I calculate the NPV of this stream at 8.82%, it will be 0. This whole will become 0. So it's a decimal places thing. So basically 0.01 means 0 only. So to answer your question, yes, we are discounting it. We are trying to discover that particular discount rate in which it becomes 0. Why it should become 0? Basically what I'm saying is, first year, what is the NPV of what I'm going to get? NPV 8.82%. What I'm going to receive is this amount. Interest first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, and the principal amount back. 94.99. This is what I'm going to receive over next 5 years. If today somebody is asking me to pay 95, it means I paid 95 and I got 95 back. So my NPV is, it will again not come 0. So, but please understand it is 0. There are decimal places issues. Just to repeat myself, IRR is that discount rate at which the NPV of all your cash inflows will become equal to the initial cash outflows. This was your expenditure. This was going to be your income over next 5 years. At what rate would they both match? Which means that if my income is going to be 95, I will not make an expenditure more than 95. I will not pay 96 for this bond. If, however, I pay 94, I will be in profit. If I pay 93, I'll be even more profit. Could you guys get me?
Yeah. So
Yes,
if I
Vishesh,
can,
that is clear.
Yes.
yeah.
Sure,
Yes,
I will
that's
just want to quickly rush now because we are almost at complete of 1 hour. It is yet to start. So lastly, what we just discussed, NPV will come here and finally discuss how NPV is calculated and how YTM impacts the NPV. This is again a problem statement. Bond face value since beginning is 100. Issue price is 100. Maturity, we are assuming that there will be a 10% premium on maturity. It's 110. Coupon here is 10%. Hurdle rate is 10%. What is a hurdle rate? So if Infosys says that I want to raise bonds and I am giving a 8% coupon, then Infosys has made a choice that they want to offer a maximum of coupon of 8%. You as an investor, it is up to you to decide that 8% is fine for you or not. How will you decide that? It depends on that what is your expected rate of return. How your expected rate of return is calculated depending on the other opportunities or alternates you have. If you are a debt investor, your return expectations will typically range between 5.5% to 10% because this is where the debt market usually operates. If you are an equity investor, your return expectations would be anywhere between, let's say, 15% to 22%. So hurdle rate or market rate is basically the alternates or the opportunity available to a debt investor to invest into a debt product. Those opportunities can be a government bond. Those opportunities can be an Infosys debenture. Those opportunities can be anything, so on and so forth. So coming back to the statement problem, 10% interest on the face value, which was 10 rupees. In this case, I have kept the interest rate simple. I have not compounded it, just for simplicity. It's a simple interest bond. 10% coupon I'm getting every year. In the final year, I'm getting 110 rupees as maturity amount. So these are my cash flows. And this is my YTM.
Yeah.
So if my hurdle rate was 10%, I had an expectation that if I go and invest into a debt product, I should be making at least a 10% return. If I divide the same cash flows by 100, take a net present value at 10% of the same cash flows, the maximum I would want to pay for this bond is 106.21 rupees. However, this bond is being offered at 100 only. So what is my surplus here? I am in a surplus of 6.21. Let's say my hurdle rate was only 9%. I would have been willing to pay 110.39 rupees for this bond. But the bond is available for 100 rupees only. I am in a surplus of 10. Let's say my hurdle rate was 13%. Just for the sake of discussion. Maximum amount I would have wanted to pay for this stream of cash flow, at 10% discount rate was 94.88. However, the bond is being offered at 100, which means I am in a deficit of 5 rupees 12 paisa, and hence I would not want to subscribe for this bond. So you would have heard the professor saying many times that there is an inverse relationship between the bond value and the interest rates. What I have plotted here is, let's say the interest rates in the market vary from 7.5% up till 13% or 14%. This is the whole swing which is possible. At 10%, the investor was willing to pay 106 rupees for this stream of cash flows. As the interest rate goes lower, the bond price rises. It becomes 108. As the interest rate goes further lower, it rises further. So you'll see that on the left side, the bond price is rising. And if the interest rate starts going higher, the bond price starts falling. This is the whole concept of inverse relationship between bond price and market interest rates.
Vishesh.
Yeah.
Just sorry to in fact interrupt here again. Again, you need to, if you can explain this hurdle rate, the definition, because I'm getting it, but as you know, we don't belong to this background. So again, this hurdle rate, please, if you can just make it little.
So let's say, if do you have a FD in the bank? All of
yeah.
So what is your FD interest these days?
7%.
7%. That is what every bank is offering.
4.9. 4.9.
FD? No, that must be a 30 days FD.
4.9.
No. Now
yearly is 5.5.
Yeah, so 1 year FD is 5.5%. So
5.5.
and it's only 3 to 4 years and above FD, which is at 7%. 7% FDs are, I think, only for women or senior citizens, unless sir has cracked a great deal and he is a preferred bank customer. So I'm very happy that he has 7%. So please park some of our money also there.
No, it's for my mother in my father's account actually.
Okay. So basically what I'm saying is that any of us, when we'll go and we'll want to buy a FD from any bank, we know that the bracket is between, let's say, 5.5% to 7%. All of us will go with this expectation. This is the hurdle rate. Tomorrow, let's say a new bank comes up. Let's say example of Bandhan Bank is a new bank. Bandhan Bank wants to attract customers. Bandhan Bank says that I'll start giving you FD at 9%. So all of us will go there and we would want to invest in that FD. So let's say Bandhan Bank, instead of FD, Bandhan Bank says that, okay, I promise to give you 100 rupees every month and 1000 rupees at the end of 1 year. And this 100 rupees will get compounded every month. What would you want to offer for this kind of a product? So all of us will come back, we'll open our Excels, we'll plot that there is, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Bandhan Bank says, I'll give you 100 rupees every month. This will get a rolling return of 10% every year. So it becomes 110 in second year, 121 in third year, 133 in fourth year, and 146 in fourth year. So they also say that I'll also give you 1000 rupees at the end of it. So what would you wish to bid for this stream of cash flow? What's wrong? Okay. So all of us said that, okay, if we had booked a FD and that FD would have given me a 7% interest rate, which is my minimum acceptable interest rate, at 7% minimum expectation, I would want to bid 1207 rupees for this product. So let's take some variations here. So you say that if you would have invested 1207 rupees in FD, you would have got 100 rupees rolled over plus this amount in maturity. Bandhan Bank says that no, not at 7%, at 8%. Even if it is at 1161, you're still in profit. At 9%, you would still be in profit, but at 6%, you would not be. Because what happens is that your expected return was at least 7%. If Bandhan Bank is offering 8%, you are happy. If Bandhan Bank is offering 9%, you are even happier. But if Bandhan Bank is offering 6%, you would not want to bid for it.
Okay, so in above calculation, in the above this case, if you can just go up a little bit. Yeah, here the interest rate and coupon is 10% over and above the hurdle rate has come, right? Of 10%.
Yeah. Hurdle rate is actually the rate at which you will be calculating the price which you wish to pay for this stream of cash flow.
Vishesh, do they compare the hurdle rate with the inflation of the country?
Of course they do. So
Okay.
this is inflation is factored in already.
Okay.
So, Vishesh, hurdle rate is always decided by the investor then?
Market.
Market. Okay.
If I'm not wrong, then hurdle
defined by the market, but depending on the category of investor. If you are a debt investor,
okay,
you look out for the debt market. If you are an equity investor, you look for the equity market.
The basis of
I am in the lottery business and I would like 200% returns. I should look at the lottery market, neither debt market nor equity market.
So basis on investor behavior, market decide and categorize.
Exactly.
To the, for the clarity of everyone, like so hurdle rate is something like over which I am calculating my NPV.
Yeah.
Right? And there is another NPV stream which is coming off from this bond.
From the bond, exactly.
From the bond. So
while your hurdle rate is 10%,
10%,
the IRR which this product is throwing is 11.6%. You see the YTM. YTM is at 11.6%. Let's say if
that's the return I'm getting from this project.
Exactly.
From outside project, I was getting 10%.
Outside project, you were getting 10%. So if I make the hurdle rate equal to the YTM, which is 11.59%, my NPV will become 0.
So IRR and YTM is the return from a particular project. Hurdle rate is the return which I'm getting from the opportunity.
Which is your benchmark with which you expect that what you should be getting. So in this case, if I was expecting 11.59% minimum return, maximum amount I would have wanted to pay for this bond was 99.99, which means 100, and the bond is being offered for 100, so I'm happy, I'll take it.
So Vishesh, I will say one statement, just let me know is it correct to say or not. So if my hurdle rate is above than interest rate, then there's a possibility that I will be in a negative cash flow.
Your hurdle rate will be, sorry, could you repeat please?
My hurdle rate is greater than my interest rate. Then
interest rate from?
So suppose interest rate is 10% and my hurdle rate is above 10%, whether 11 or 15, then I will have a negative.
Then you'll have a negative.
Yes. So upfrontly, by looking these two figures, can we make an assumption that my hurdle rate is above interest rate, so it will be a negative one?
Yeah, but then you'll have to see the other complication.
Right, that's why
variations also, no? Because in this case, let's say your hurdle rate is 10%. So issued at discount, maturity at premium. So we'll go back to this example. I'll make it 10%. In this case, your bond value is 100. It is issued at discount, redeemable at maturity. Hurdle rate was 10%. This bond is also offering 10%. Your IRR is 14.12%. So whenever you are taking a call on the hurdle rate, in case of a bond, don't just compare it with the coupon, compare it with YTM. YTM is the return which is all inclusive, taking care of into consideration all the variations.
Okay. Thank you.
Got it, guys?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thanks.
So there is one concept which I am not picking up right now is modified duration. Duration is that's an extremely complicated issue or a topic. Sorry. Basically, duration means to measure the riskiness of a bond with respect to the change in YTMs or yields. So I think we'll need good half an hour, 45 minutes for this topic. So the modified duration is something which we'll have to pick up separately. So we move towards a more riskier asset class. Guys, how much time you have and how long all of us should stretch this call?
So it's
9:42 already.
42.
I think if everyone is fine, can we pick up tomorrow half an hour?
Can we cover this, Vishesh, on Saturday? Because, we have families as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, in fact, initially also I was thinking we should only cover bonds because it takes time, and equity will take a similar time.
Yeah, maybe next Saturday we can do
Saturday,
equity.
Saturday, guys, I'm sorry I would not be available. But we'll stay connected on call. We'll try and see a spot in between.
Can we do it tomorrow also?
Yes. Equity will take a lot of time. So I think half an hour or 1 hour slot tomorrow, or half an hour we can do it.
Or Friday.
Can do it. We can do it tomorrow also.
Yeah, that's fine.
Depending on how all you are placed, let me know.
Same time?
Same time tomorrow then.
8:30.
Yeah, that should be fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, done.
Sounds good.
Done.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Vishesh.
Vishesh.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Great efforts.
Thank you, Vishesh. Great
And
effort.
please send this.
Thank you.
Please send this.
I'll just send it on the WhatsApp only.
Yes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you,
yeah,
Vishesh.
bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much, Murli Vishesh. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Vishesh.
Thank you, sir.
So, Vishesh, we'll connect you tomorrow then.
Yeah, 8:30 tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rupesh. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Pragya. Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Yeah, good night.